Hey there, I'm Mike Burnett. Welcome to the Real Squabble. Today we're talking about mental and physical well-being. But before we do, let me remind you to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where all our other shows that we have on there about gun control and transgender. What else have we talked about? Um, just anything and everything controversial, right? Um, so go there, check it out, and like it, subscribe to it, and follow us. We'd appreciate that. Today we're talking about, as I said, mental and physical well-being, and Jackie is going to kick things off for us. Hey,
Hey, so the question I was going to ask, but maybe don't need to now, is what do you think of, Sheldon, when you hear the phrase health and wellness? What do you think of?
Well, I think in recent years I've started to think of that differently, and the reason that I have is because of my own struggles that I've had, and so when I hear the words health and wellness, I think about something that is more inclusive of not only keeping your body fit through exercise and nutrition, but making sure you're taking care of your mind. Because what I found is that for a long time, I was having physical issues that were directly related, and we can probably talk this later, to my mental state. So once I started to tackle the mental piece, then the physical issues improved.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So, Mike, my question for you is, which one do you think has more importance, physical health or mental health?
I have to say, I have to say they go hand in hand, right? So okay, so if I had to, I can't even choose one, right?
right. Yeah, I think
I'll just go out there and I'll say physical health.
Well,
Okay.
I think it's so tied together that it's really almost impossible to dissect it. But I do think that our mental health is the most important, because I think that that's tied to our spiritual health, and it's definitely tied to our physical health. Because if we're not mentally, spiritually aligned, I think it has dramatic effects on our body. Right. And our body, vice versa, it can go the other way. For instance, when we worry, when we worry a lot, we create ulcers, right? So our mind and our attitude, and our mental well-being can have a huge impact on our body.
Yep. Well, so okay, when we talk about health, right? We've got physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health. We can get to financial health. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Right.
Yep.
So what I really like about this, talking about physical and mental health, just kind of focusing on those two for right now, is that research shows an undeniable link between mental and physical health. And you were alluding to that, Mike, and Sheldon as well, actually, talking about how your mental state can affect your health.
Right. Definitely does. Did your people call it the mind body problem. Right? And it can be a problem, but it can be really beneficial, if you have this good healthy formation of the two. I always liked, I think, back in high school and even early in college, I always liked the way the Greeks were, right? I always used to think about the Greeks because I love the academia, the whole Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and all the deep thinking of those people, and of the Olympians, of the way so that they really were committed to the heart and the mind. I say heart being the mental, aspect of who we are.
Okay. Well, that kind of speaks in a way too to more current combinations of those two, right? Like it wasn't really that long ago when visualization became a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Players would, basketball players, football players, gymnasts, whatever. If you could visualize it happening, you had a better chance of making it happen.
Right.
Right. That whole visualization thing. But here's what I find interesting too. And this is kind of, again, physical, mental. We're going to go back and forth on them. Do either of you remember when eggs were bad? Don't eat eggs.
I do. And bacon too.
Yeah, don't eat eggs. Eggs are
butter.
Bad.
Yeah.
Butter. Ooh.
Or coffee. Coffee goes back and forth. Like every other year. It's good. It's bad. It's good. I don't care. I just drink it.
Yeah.
It's the one bad or good habit I have.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we had the eggs, we had the butter, we had the coffee.
Yeah.
Grains. Right.
Yeah.
Gluten-free thing now. Where do you actually stand on the gluten-free issue, by the way? I'm just
stand on it.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it's. I mean, people actually have issues. What do they call it when you have a what's the word?
Intolerance.
Well, intolerance is
like
one
an
thing,
allergy,
but when you
allergy.
Well, yeah, allergies are bad, but people have more than an intolerance. They just can't.
Can't metabolize it.
Yeah, maybe it'll come to me, but they can't do it. They'll get sick. They'll have anaphylaxis. It would kill them if they went that way. I think it's a good thing. I think that probably because of the way society has mistreated their bodies through the years and all the drugs and chemicals in the food and everything that we've had through the years, it's probably contributed to that.
I think the chemicals, pesticides, et cetera, probably play a role in that intolerance, because when we were kids, you didn't have people with peanut allergies and all these other allergies. Now, when people try to get me to eat gluten-free stuff, there are certain ingredients that are included in gluten-free foods that could have an adverse impact on my health, because I have this. It's referred to as G6PD. I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but it causes my cells to destruct prematurely, right? And so certain things that are included in gluten-free foods can spur that, in mothballs and all kinds of other stuff. So, but it's just interesting how those things came about. Now, my condition, it goes way back to sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm resistant to malaria, right? So, when I go overseas, and when I used to get sick when I took the doxycycline, so I had to take mefloquine instead. But I not to get too far off track, but I think it has a lot to do with some of those factors.
Yeah. Hey, it's celiac is what I was thinking about. A person is a celiac who has gluten problems. I'm glad that we can accommodate it now, because it allows people to experience, some allows them to still have the pleasure of eating certain foods,
Yeah. I know. I just remember. I think back, and it's like, again, like we said, the eggs were bad. That they were good, then they were not so good, then they were okay, and then grains were great. And then, no grains.
But isn't there a food pyramid that is totally wrong now?
Yeah.
we grew up looking at this food pyramid, and it's totally wrong.
Leaning Tower of Pisa now. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
And my thing was always like, okay, so the egg issue, the grains issue, and then bacon isn't necessarily good for you, but it's yummy. We can't even agree on the most important meal of the day.
Yeah. Well, people who have to take medications, there's no one medication that is the same for every person. So I think foods are kind of like that too, right? You've got to, just like you learn what you're allergic to, you wean out certain foods, you've got to do that with what you eat as well. I think there are some obvious things that you might need a little more of this or that to feel better. I think it seems to me to be pretty obvious that eating fast foods is not the best thing you can do for yourself.
Right.
Deep fried foods. I love pizza. But I don't eat fast food. I don't go out like I did. I won't say names because I don't want to get sued, but I don't go to these franchise burger places or taco places anymore. I don't do that.
Well, see, now that's the thing, because I'm sorry, Sheldon, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's okay.
No,
I just want to say real quick. So we think about the old food pyramid and the things that took priority in that food pyramid. You think about how people made a living back then versus how people make a living right now, right?
Right.
And just like when we were younger, we could eat just about anything. But society as a whole is more sedentary in the things that they do for work and in a lot of things that we do for play as well. So in that respect, maybe we do need to look at the food pyramid and make some adjustments.
And you've got to look at other aspects too, Jackie. Is for me, since December, I have lost 70 pounds. Okay. And I've done that by eating well, exercising. And I know from doing research, I know approximately how many calories someone my age and weight should eat to maintain. But even with that basic, what do you want to call bar? I still have to spend a month or two seeing if that bar really is accurate to my life. Does that bar that I'm setting actually undercut me, or does it make me start gaining weight? And that's going to be different for everyone, right?
Right.
So I actually have a little, old school, pad, here that, sorry. So when I'm doing wrong, I snap it and I go, don't eat that. And I write down, if I have a sausage biscuit in the morning with no cheese, turkey sausage, egg, and a biscuit, I write down how many calories I ate, and if I'm eating something sweet or fatty, how much fat or sugar that I'm taking in, because you can really, especially as you get older, sugar can cripple you. Brings on diabetes, brings on lots of issues, and people just down sodas and iced tea and alcohol drinks or food that turns into sugar fast, and it hurts them. And you wonder why. Right now you could look at I don't know if you can even tell on the computer, but my face has thinned out a lot. But I look on my ID card, my driver's license, and I'm like, wow, I had deceived myself in the mirror for so long that I remember looking at that picture thinking, oh, I'm looking fine. I'm looking good, but hey, I'm handsome. But we're good at that. We look ourselves front on in the mirror, deceive ourselves instead of turning sideways and seeing how far the belly actually sticks out.
Right.
Nobody wants to look sideways.
But I actually cut off about this much on my. What'd you say?
I already feel the need to cover up. Oh my God.
I actually cut, I think about 8 or 9 inches off my belt a couple months ago. And I I haven't bought new clothes yet because I still plan on losing about 20 more pounds. And that matters. You've got to do it safely. You've got to do it right. I have friends and people who have gone up and down in the past, and I have too, where they don't eat right, they don't count their calories, or say someone like me. I was exercising when I was, toward the end of my military career. I was getting fatter, being put on the Fat Boy program, but I could still run the 1.5 or 2 miles in acceptable time. I could ace the push-ups and the sit-ups, but I was overweight.
Yeah.
And, I kept saying, well, you shouldn't give me a problem because, I can do all this, but I was starting to not look good in uniform. And believe it or not, I mean, even though I felt good at the time, I could have felt better. I could have run better. But again, I kept deceiving myself in that kind of way. And as you get older, you got to continue to take care of yourself, eat right, eat balanced, count your calories, because I guess this is where I was going. I would exercise and do my PT test, my physical test, the way I should, and I was still staying at the same weight or gaining weight.
Yeah.
Even with eating good foods.
Right.
And that's some advice I'd given someone lately. He said, I'm not losing weight and I'm eating the right things. I go, well, you're eating too many of the right things.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
because we can't. Go ahead, Jackie.
Go, Sheldon. Go.
I'll just real quick. We can't eat the same things that we used to eat, and I try to do that, which is why my face is still round, and so I'm slowly getting to a point where I'm like, okay, well, I'm really gonna start to take this thing seriously now. Health wise, all my numbers are great, right? They're better now than they were before, but I think over time, it's going to take a toll on the musculoskeletal system and things like that.
Sure.
It will.
Your metabolism slows down as you get older. And there are all those little tiny things you can do. I mean, like just 2 minutes of walking after eating help lower the blood sugar. Okay, I can do that. I'll take the dog out. No big deal. Whereas, see, now I'm listening to you two. I'm well, we know I'm different, but I'm different because I pretty much stay within the same weight and stayed within the same 5 pounds within the last 30 years or so. Stayed right that weight. But I'm what you'd call a seasonal foodie. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good food. Okay. Right. I love to cook. I love to create things, and they're pretty good. I'll say it.
Well, and you're in Germany.
And I'm in Germany, right?
Yeah.
But when I say I'm a seasonal eater, the period between like now, the beginning of September, and Easter is very treacherous for me for one reason and one reason. It really is. It's horrible. I can pack it on very quickly. And because I do not want to get sued, I will not say the name of the product either. But it comes in pumpkins and Christmas trees and Easter eggs. And oh my God, I just want to eat them all. I just want to eat them all. Like
I saw just yesterday, I saw my first bag of candy corns at Target. And I love candy corns.
I remember that about you.
I usually wait till the end of Halloween and then I buy when they go on sale. And then I'll eat a bag or two until I go comatose. And but I'm leaving it alone right now. And that's it. You have to will it. And if you don't create a plan, a strategy for what it is you want to do, to get through, or how much you're going to do, like for now, I'll have a cookie and an ice cream sandwich almost every day, and I'm losing weight because I'm exercising and I'm counting my calories.
Right.
I'm giving myself a treat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm still doing that.
Well, that's that mind body connection, right? Because so I've plateaued at a weight that I've been at for the last 5 years, right? I don't gain too much, but I can't lose any, right? And so a lot of it has to do with the psychological state that you're in when you eat something and then later on you eat something else, and you may have forgotten what you ate. You may have forgotten how much you ate. And really, to be totally honest, you don't want to remember because of that thing you want right there.
Right. Yeah. Well, Sheldon, Sheldon and I were deployed together in Afghanistan, and I would see him in Kandahar quite often. And, I remember being rocketed while I was in Kandahar, while I was at the chow hall. And I was under a table, and I reach up over the table to grab a peanut butter cookie.
Yeah.
Because I figured like if I was going to go, I was going to pray to God for any, last minute forgiveness and eat my cookie,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's make this maybe like the last thing on food, just because I think it's kind of funny what you just said. Sad, but funny. So what would be the one thing you would want to eat if you knew this was the last thing you were going to eat? What would it be?
Oh, a juicy filet mignon with bacon wrapped around it, a medium rare.
Wow, you got that one nailed right down to okay.
Maybe with some fried onions and mushrooms around it.
Okay, Sheldon.
This is going to sound terrible, right? Because I like a lot of really good stuff, and what I'm about to mention here, I don't eat very often. But a box of Popeye's chicken.
Oh.
And by the way, Mike. By the way, Mike. During that rocket attack, I had my entire plate on the floor.
Well, you get life. When you Sheldon and I are being very real here because there's multiple times in Afghanistan that I thought it was my last day. So I'm not saying anything I say cavalierly,
Right.
So you just wake up and you do what you feel God wants you to do that day, and you move forward. I was never a coward. I did but I was like, you know what? Here I am. It was interesting. Even, if you've never been there, you can't relate. Okay. Probably. But, if you've watched MASH, in the middle of the Korean War, they tried to have fun and they joked a lot. It's kind of the way it is when you're in serious circumstances in war and you're in life and death situations. But I remember that they had like this, in one of the tents, they were putting on this little salsa dance. They had some salsa music and they were in there trying to relax, and they were, doing I can't do it, watch me do
it.
Yeah. Never mind.
Okay. And the rockets came in, everybody dove for cover, and, the smoke cleared and everybody went back in there and they turned the music back on. You eat, life, when you have life, if the sun comes up again, you embrace it.
Yeah.
But that's also tying into that whole physical mental thing,
Right. Exactly.
For myself, I always have. I use humor to deflect grief that's too strong for me to handle.
Right.
Or a situation that's too uncomfortable.
Right.
Instead, I will just deflect, and I will say some of the oddest things at the most inopportune moments, much to the chagrin of my family, friends, and our dog, right? But but I get that.
Well, I think that's okay, because I've worked with you a long time, and you're very cool hand Luke type of person, very easy to work with, at least on the outside. But I work with you. You deal with stressful situations. You've been on the stage a lot, so you probably know how to react when things go wrong. But if you're on stage and you're getting rocketed by the audience, it puts a whole new twist to things. That your attitude really does matter, and we've talked about that on other shows. I think your mental attitude of gratitude, honestly, if you wake up being thankful for the things that you have, the things you can do, the God you can serve, the things that provide you and your life meaning and purpose, more than just, this is a conversation that Sheldon and I were having prior, a pre-show. We were talking about life isn't, really, happiness is a good thing. Don't get it wrong. I think everyone wants happiness. But if we only live for happiness, then it kind of diminishes sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right? It diminishes, it kind of poo-poos the Mother Teresas of the world, who are sacrificing their lives for a higher purpose to take care of people for God in their from Mother Teresa's view, right?
Yeah.
So that, if happiness is good, but happiness is ultimately self-serving. So yeah, I think we should take care of ourselves. Because even those who are Christians believe the Bible when it says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you," right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you are considering yourself and how you want to be treated and how you want others to be treated. And in that treatment, a lot of times you can be treated poorly. You can be in circumstances that are bad, but you can still have gratitude for who you are, whose you are, and what your meaning and purpose is in life. And that attitude has gotten me through some tough spots like you're talking about, where it got me through algebra 2, where I understood. I developed my sense of humor in algebra 2 because I totally lost it. I developed most of my comedy regime and sense of humor in all the classes that were over my head in high school. It served me well as an American Forces radio disc jockey later on in life.
Right.
Well, Mike, algebra 2, you bring up a very interesting memory. Algebra 2, I failed in high school, but my saving grace was I was already accepted for college, I already had my scholarship, and I could have failed one more class and still graduated.
Right.
I'm right there with Sheldon. Yeah. Why do we all have traumas with algebra? We should do
I don't know.
Like, is that radio personalities all have a problem with?
But we overcame it, as you're showing. We overcame it with our mental health. We were able, we were able to laugh at the fact or go, okay, so I'm not good at everything.
Right?
There's no one that's good at everything.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the first thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, that's where that, at least for me too, that self-deprecating humor comes in. It's like, I can either get really worked up, and I used to when I was younger, as a teen in my 20s and that, it was, if I couldn't be perfect, I wasn't worth anything. That was really how I felt. Right. And that's an impossible standard to live up to.
And it certainly is.
It really is. And if you have people in your circle that are trying to do that to you, that are trying to insist that you be perfect and you walk perfect and you don't spill milk and the whole 9 yards, it trauma, no matter what you're doing, I think it traumatizes you. It makes you a nervous wreck. It brings on anxiety.
And it sets you up for failure. Absolutely. Because we were talking before about happiness being the worldly sense of happiness. The common accepted concept of happiness is very self-focused, right? And you're never going to be able to achieve that. And it's similar to perfection, right? As humans, we're never going to be able to achieve perfection, right? And so let's tie this back into mental health, right? We have, record numbers seemingly of suicides. But I think homicides play into it as well, right? And I'm going to put something out there, right? You got a bunch of cops that have mental health issues, and they're dealing with a bunch of citizens that have mental health issues, right? Especially in some of the lower income areas. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? The lower income areas, getting help is seen as a weakness. But in law enforcement, getting help is seen as a weakness, right? And so, hey.
It's not, that whole getting seen as a weakness.
Absolutely.
It's at both ends of the spectrum. It's all over.
Well, let me bring it even more personal. And I won't say names, but I have a couple of family members who have mental health issues. One that's very serious, and the person is being treated for it and being successful because this person has a good family support system, right? And I myself have struggled, I think, with anxiety most of my life. I think I was skilled enough with my humor or whatever to cope with it. But when I came back, and I kept, that self-awareness, that coping and thinking, why am I doing this? I remember one time in Germany, Jackie, when I was there, and I spoke in front of some big groups, hundreds of people before, but I spoke in front of a small room of like less than 10 people, and I had a panic attack. One time. So I thought, this isn't about me being afraid of groups. This was like a biochemical thing that hit me, or I was triggered some way with this. And when I came back from Afghanistan, I had severe claustrophobia, and I had I was not scared. I was not afraid. Every day I woke up, I rode Black Hawk helicopters. I was on Humvees. I was in explosions. The thing is, I was on the boat in front of the wake, right? Nothing caught up with me yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And like my last week of being in Kabul, Afghanistan, I had such severe claustrophobia that I had to ask a general officer who was sitting in the front of the Humvee to move, to let me sit in the front so I could and he did. He was a great guy. I told him, sir, I've got overwhelming claustrophobia. I'm leaving now to get out of country. And he graciously sat in the back and let me get up there. Great leader. But I came back. I couldn't get on the metro, which is the subway around Washington, D.C., because my whole uniform would break out in sweat. I would be soaked because of the claustrophobia and the overwhelming anxiety. So I started in the last couple of years, I started taking anxiety medicine. And, you should not be afraid to talk about it, to seek help, to talk to your doctors, to go to talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist or a counselor. These are things that used to be people were afraid of. They're like, they thought of them like witch doctors, or that you had gone crazy, right? And you're not crazy. You're human. Your brain is like sometimes behaves like a car that's out of line. The tires are out of line, and the anxiety medicine and other things that you can get for mental health issues, for whatever the issue is, are vitamins for your brain.
Basically, yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I never knew that you had, because I guess it's my last month in Afghanistan, and Captain Reitinger graciously, invited me up to Kabul so I could go see the Afghans I worked with during my previous deployment. And but when we got to the airport in Kabul, and mind you, when I was there in 06, 07, I drove that road every day, soft skin vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Not a problem, right?
Not
but
when we were there.
Getting in the back of that Suburban, that up armored Suburban, that was my first ever issue with claustrophobia. I never had it like that in my life. I was sweating. I was just, I was about to lose it. Never had that before. And I don't ride the red line to this day. And there are a lot of days when I did ride it, when I was staying up in Silver Spring, when I'd go up there, then I would have to get off and I would have to take an Uber, especially when it got crowded and there were a lot of people between me and the door.
Right.
And so, I mean, but Mike talks about the medications as well. And so, I'd been on medications before, but I think I've finally gotten the right balance between two medications. And sometimes you got to kind of experiment. The doctor's not going to be able to, take you 100% of the way, but you got to experiment. I found something that works. So, but it's just interesting to hear that you had that same experience. And and another thing that happened with my last deployment, right? And I probably shouldn't have gone, but we were at Fort Bragg. We were getting ready to go. And on the 31st of January, my stepfather passed away. And so I remember going home. We had the funeral and stuff. And I think just everything. And then some of the behavior of other people who are reacting to the stress.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up in the hospital there
Mm-hmm.
at Baylor in Waxahachie, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they held me there for a couple of days. And so the second or third night that I was there, because they were trying to get my vital signs stabilized and get my pressure down,
Mm-hmm.
I told them, look, my leave expires tomorrow. I need to be back at Fort Bragg.
Right.
And they said, okay, well, and that night before I did breathing exercises all night just to and that helped bring things into line. So they finally let me go, but I never went to the hospital at Fort Bragg. So when I got to Afghanistan, I didn't realize it, but I was saying things to people and doing things that were negative, and
Right.
and it wasn't until I was presented with the prospect of being sent home that I came to realize that, hey, I'm not dealing with this very well.
Right.
And fortunately, I was able to turn it around and have a very successful deployment. But
well, yeah.
What were you about to say?
No, I said I know you. You're a peaceful guy, and the same kind of thing happened to me. I'm overall pretty peaceful, but I felt on edge. There were things that would trigger me that would cause me to rage. Never at my family, but out there, if driving or someone. I remember getting out of the car on somebody one time. That's a no-no. Don't do unless you want to get shot.
Right.
But I was ready to beat up, everybody in Annapolis, so you cannot, you gotta do something to help yourself control. A lot of times that stuff is, you get triggered. It is PTSD, and it's not just from, we're talking about deployments, Jackie, but you touched on it earlier. I think from the time you were a teenager, maybe people get abused traumatically in their families in a variety of ways.
Well, but not only that, and I'm glad you brought that back up, right? And because that whole feeling that I had about having to be perfect,
right?
Don't screw up,
right?
You're not good enough, so you could always be better,
right?
It wasn't necessarily, in fact, it wasn't, period, anything that my family had put on me. I put it on me,
right?
Because I was going to be better than they were. I was going to, as far as there was a lot of dinners at our family table were a sparring match like you would not believe.
Sure.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
There was just any little thing could set somebody off, and then it was who could outdo the other one.
Right.
I'm not doing this. I am not.
Yeah, that's traumatic. I think the more I talk to families too, and people come from families. A lot of us have come from families where there's been a lot of alcohol abuse, and you have family members who traumatize the family in one way or another, mentally or physically,
right,
or both. To where it's very, very traumatic. It's troubling. There is no reasoning or logic in those cases. And when you have a group of people, no matter whether it's religion, politics, or anything controversial, right? If the person, it gets back to happiness. Is it all about you? Right? Really?
No.
Okay.
No.
If you truly believe something, that's great. I truly believe some things too, but how you behave within that also matters too, because if it comes down to just being competitive, and there's been times, okay, all right, I went to a Christian school for my bachelor's degree, and young 18-year-old guys in the dorms, it can be nothing but a debate match, like a cage match of debate of smart guys. And, Sherry, my wife, could tell you there was a time and a day where I could debate a doorknob. You know what I mean? It would be like, but then after a while, it's like, all right, that's fine. But it's kind of like boxing. You can always find someone bigger and tougher who could punch you in the nose.
Right.
So are you enjoying being a boxer? Are you enjoying being who you are and your meaning and your purpose? Or is it all just about you winning every day? Right?
Right.
Do your beliefs circle around just you winning? If
Mhm.
you do, that's probably an unhealthy mental attitude to have. If just you being happy and winning circles around your beliefs.
Especially, I just want to say real quick, especially when you're dealing with your children, and
Oh yeah.
so that's an area where I wasn't for a period of time a very good parent through detachment and through overreacting to situations, and I think that had a profound effect on the mental health of one of my kids, and we're working to this day to try to repair that. And it hasn't been an easy process, but
Yeah.
I think we're making progress.
And
Hey,
I know there was one thing that you brought up, Mike, is that you said it earlier, I believe. Something about you need to know who you are. And I think really that is a huge focal point to having a good physical and mental health balance. You
right,
need to know who you are, what you stand for,
right.
what's important to you.
Mhm.
And let's face it, we all have a choice. I could have stayed the grouchy rage. You mentioned rage, Mike. I would do that a lot. I would just blow up. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and I got to the point where I didn't like me.
right.
You know, I didn't like me. So
Mhm.
then it was like, okay, how do I fix this? How do I fix this?
Right.
Right.
And
You know,
if I remember correctly, your bachelor's degree is like in psychology, right? So you have some tools of trying to understand, and a lot of our emotions like that come from fear, right?
Right.
yes,
Fear of being ignorant, fear of not being good enough, fear
mhm.
of being compromised,
Oh
fear
yeah,
whatever it is, and we deal with that. Some people deal with fear by crying and cowering. Some people
Mhm.
deal with it by getting themselves informed and learning more. some
right,
people some people deal with fear by lashing out
Mhm.
right.
inappropriately. Some people deal with fear by self-medicating, and
Right.
those are really unhealthy ways to do that.
Yeah, they are.
um,
And,
so
when
go
I
ahead.
started going to school after high school, college,
Mhm.
I had always been fascinated with psychology, just fascinated. Doesn't
Mhm.
apply to me, but I was fascinated, right? As everybody
Yeah.
else is.
Mhm.
But when I was working on my master's, actually, is when it started to click in this brain that
Mhm.
it's not about everybody else,
Right.
Missy.
No.
You have the tools right in front of you, physician heal thyself kind of thing, start figuring it out.
Yeah, interestingly
Yeah.
enough, a lot of people who study psychology and go into that profession started by wanting to understand their own issues, and
Right.
it's
Right.
it's not uncommon. And I think in our next show we're going to talk a lot about the soul and,
Mm-hmm.
that inner introspection of ourself and
Mm-hmm.
where things like that come from. And I think we do a lot of that through the years. Like, why am I feeling that way? Why am I doing this? Why are they behaving that way? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
Uh, and
Oh,
it-
that
we
come
and we
exactly.
get what happens is the person could be saying something true even, but we
Mm-hmm.
get
Mhm.
so turned off by their behavior that we don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Like say one of your drama groups that you've been in. I may
Mm-hmm.
love drama, but you're not that it is, because I know you work with good people, but your drama group could be toxic,
Oh yeah.
right?
I've asked
It could
that
be
art.
very hostile, and that has nothing to do with drama.
No.
It created its own drama,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
Exactly.
but it has, but what happens, and I'm using this as an analogy, a lot of people go, well, those actors are so hostile, who would ever want to be in drama? It's like the
Right.
same thing happens with certain political groups or religious groups. It goes, and as a Christian, I can say, and I think we could all know just by our own experiences, that religious people can be some of the nastiest people.
I've got to jump off and jump in another meeting.
Bye,
Okay.
Sheldon.
All right. Hey, you guys take care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we snagged. Thanks, Sheldon. We snagged
Yeah.
Sheldon during his lunch period.
Yes, we did.
So, and we've got you during your dinner in Germany.
That's okay. But one thing I wanted to, because I have to fess up. I have to fess up now because you said something. So a lot of people do get into or study psychology to try to figure out, a family member, or rarely themselves, but they want to figure everybody else out.
Because it's everybody else's problem, right?
No, that's not why I did it. I actually started out as a music major.
Oh.
And then I saw Silence of the Lambs and decided I wanted to be Clarice.
That's funny.
Exactly how it started. Yes.
Well, yeah, I think, some of those fringe type of issues like that certainly make you ponder, what's in the human mind.
Oh, yeah.
And how we operate. I think that could be an interesting discussion for a future show. But, I want to go back, if I could, for just a second, with people who have severe mental health issues, right? Because we're talking about mental and physical well-being, and taking your medicines, seeing your counselors, having support. It's all important. Taking your medicines regularly. Psychiatrists have told me that that's the biggest issue with people who have mental health issues, is that they think they're okay now and they stop taking it. It's like someone who thinks their sugar's okay and they stop taking their insulin. It's like, no, keep taking those vitamins for your brain, help yourself, get through it, get the support that you need. And, because I do believe in the mind, the soul, and the body, I kind of see it as though your body, the example that I have heard is, say, for example, you were strapped into a car.
Okay.
You were strapped with your arms and legs were strapped down inside a car. And the car was greatly dysfunctional. A lot of the windows were dirty. You couldn't see out of exactly, or it was muddy and unclear. The turn signals didn't work exactly right. The what do you call them? The dashboard wasn't giving you all the right signs. It's a mess, right? So that your car is the example of a severe mental health issue, right? Your brain and your body. You being strapped in there is your soul, right? Your soul must cooperate with your body in order for everything to function correctly. But if your body has issues, it's out of alignment, and you want to turn right and your car won't do that, you can't. You can will it, right? One of the states of mental states, they say, is your freedom of will. I can say, I want to touch my left arm to my chin like Jackie is, and I can will it, right? It doesn't happen automatically. It just isn't just going to happen. I can will it. That shows that I'm different than my brain, because a will is something that a physical biochemical brain can't do. They're not identical. So that
following you,
when you're in a car and you will it to go right, but you're so drugged out, say maybe you're a heroin addict, that you can't now. Your body is under control of heroin, so your soul can't drive that wrecked car until a time, and this is leading into one of our next shows, you have an out-of-body experience. You have a near-death experience, or your soul leaves your body, and people have, and we won't go deep into this, but
we're going to do that next month.
People give, I just want to tease it though, people give great testimonies of being able, the blind being able to see, the deaf being able to hear. We're not talking about Christians per se. We're talking about vast, pieces of evidence out of the University of Virginia. even of people who have had that. We're going to talk to Gary Habermas about that next month. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, just a little bit of tongue in cheek here. The fact that we're going to do it in the month of October warms the cockles of my little weird heart. But
well, I'll bring in some candy corns to help warm
no.
the cockles even more. So, all right, Jackie, where are we now? Anything else you want to say to wrap us up?
You know what? We've been talking for about an hour, and I think that we've touched on, I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about. Let's be honest, right? There really is. But then we run the risk of having everybody fall asleep and never listen to us again. So maybe it's good to stop, while you're ahead, maybe.
Okay, good. We touched on the physical health, which is great.
Yep.
The balanced life of exercise and eating. And I had mentioned how I believe the spiritual health is really tied to our mental health and that kind of thing, which we'll talk more about on the next show. And of addressing your issues, right? Address your mental and physical issues. Don't ignore them. Don't put them off. I should have dealt with my anxiety issues many, many years ago. It got worse. Don't be embarrassed by it. Ask the right questions. Go to groups like NAMBI, people that help you get together with other family members who have issues with mental health. Sign up with a wellness coach, right? For your physical wellness. Go to a gym, get a wellness coach, or just start slowly.
Yeah, find what works for you.
Right.
And then just commit to it. And okay, I'm going to go to a wellness coach. And after 2 weeks, I'm like, no, this is not for me.
But start slow and don't
right.
No matter what the issue is for your mental, physical, or spiritual life, don't compare yourself to other people.
Yes.
Start where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You are unique. And I teach this in class all the time. I was, right before this one, I was doing a class on coaching, a 3-hour class on coaching. Mm-hmm. Every person is unique. Everybody's style of communication, of leadership, it's all different.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what yours is before you can figure out how to adapt yours to someone else's. But yeah, Mike, you're absolutely right. Don't ignore it. It is not taboo.
Well, thanks for leading us through the conversation today, Jackie. Appreciate that. And Sheldon, who dropped off a little bit early. That concludes the show. Tell us what you think about the Real Squabble. Suggest topics, and remember to like us on Facebook and subscribe to YouTube. That helps us to build an audience and to get this kind of important conversation going on with all the fun and controversial issues that we like to talk about here on the Real Squabble.
Bye, guys.